Whoa, hit the brakes. You've arrived at the #1 drive-by for American history. Welcome to The Pit Stop. Brought to you by In the Past Lane, the podcast about history and why it matters. Here's Edward T. O'Donnell, your host and historian at large.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Pit Stop, your Monday morning source for history on the go in just about 5 minutes. We offer this mini-feature every Monday, in addition to our regular full-feature episodes. Here's what happened in American history the week of July 1st, 2019. Let's start with birthdays. July 2nd is the birthday of civil rights activist and Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall, who was born in Baltimore, Maryland on July 2nd, 1908. Thurgood Marshall once said, "History teaches that grave threats to liberty often come in times of urgency, when constitutional rights seem too extravagant to endure." July 4th is the birthday of the 30th President of the United States, Calvin Coolidge, who was born July 4th, 1872 in Plymouth, Vermont. Two giants in American naval history were born this week. On July 5th, 1801, Admiral David Farragut was born in Farragut, Tennessee. He served in the Union Navy during the Civil War and famously shouted in the Battle of Mobile Bay, "Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead." Also born this week was Captain John Paul Jones, who was born in 1747 on July 6th. He's famous for replying to a demand for surrender during a great naval battle, "I have not yet begun to fight." Also born this week was the famous African-American baseball pitcher Satchel Paige, who was born July 7th, 1906 in Mobile, Alabama. Satchel Paige, who pitched into his 50s, once said, "Age is a case of mind over matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter." Also born this week, on July 2nd, 1925 in Decatur, Mississippi, was Medgar Evers. He grew up in Mississippi in the Deep South during the height of Jim Crow. He walked 12 miles a day to attend a segregated school. He served in the U.S. Army during World War II, fighting in the Battle of Normandy, among other places. And after the war, he attended a historically black college, graduating in 1952. Soon he became active in the civil rights cause, working to desegregate Mississippi schools and to register African-American voters. As he became more prominent in the fight for civil rights, he faced increasing death threats. On June 7th, 1963, Medgar Evers said, "Freedom has never been free. I love my children and I love my wife with all my heart. And I would die gladly, if that would make a better life for them." 5 days later, Medgar Evers was shot and killed in his driveway by a white supremacist. Let's turn to events this week. On July 2nd, 1776, the Continental Congress approved a motion declaring the independence of the 13 colonies from Great Britain. 47 years later, on July 2nd, 1863, Union and Confederate forces squared off in a little town called Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. The ensuing 3-day battle proved a pivotal turning point in the war for the Union cause. 101 years later, on July 2nd, 1964, President Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act, a law that outlawed discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. And on July 6th, 1892, in the midst of one of the great strikes in American history, the Homestead Strike, workers employed by the great steel magnate Andrew Carnegie clashed with a force of professional strikebreakers known as Pinkertons. This incident killed 6 people and made national headlines. But in the end, the workers lost the strike. Okay, time for the last word. Let's give it to John Adams, who wrote on July 2nd, 1776, after the Continental Congress approved a motion calling for America's independence, "The 2nd day of July will be the most memorable epoch in the history of America. I am apt to believe that it will be celebrated by succeeding generations as the great anniversary festival. It ought to be commemorated as the day of deliverance by solemn acts of devotion to God Almighty. It ought to be solemnized with pomp and parade, with shows, games, sports, guns, bells, bonfires, and illuminations from one end of this continent to the other, from this time forward forevermore. Happy 4th of July, everyone. Or, if you prefer, 2nd of July.